What is the single most ignorant thing you have ever heard? Studying astronomy in 3rd grade and the teacher asks our class which planet is closest to Earth. I raised my hand and answered Venus. The teacher snickered and replied, no, it's the moon. All of the kids laughed at me. My 4th grade teacher made fun of me because I told her PBS said that Alaska was the largest US state, not Texas. She pointed to the map where the continental US was one scale and the 2 non-continental states, Alaska and Hawaii, were in different scales. You would think she would have noticed that Hawaii was the size of Montana. When the subject of Stephen Hawking came up, I don't get it. How can he be smart if he's in a wheelchair? A young woman brought her baby into Maya for vomiting. During my assessment, I noticed the smell of bug spray, so I asked the mom about it. Her response was that she saw a roach crawl into its mouth, so she gave it a little squirt of Raid. One of the most jaw-dropping, ignorant things I have ever heard in my life. Yes, Child Protective Services and the police were involved soon after that conversation with that mother. This made me think, non-maliciously, that everyone would really benefit if parenting classes were a common thing. And then I realized they probably wouldn't explicitly cover "don't pour poison in your baby's mouth." While watching a family video of my brother throwing sticks at an alligator, the gator came out of the water and sprinted after him. My granny gasped and exclaimed, "You mean them things got legs?" I live in NC. A lady told me that her aunt forwarded her an email from CNN.com that said that Obama had legalized abortion on kids up to 2 years of age. Obama had legalized murdering toddlers. Old people emails are like the weekly world news version of the internet. A co-worker said he didn't have to wear sunscreen. We worked outside in Florida, and he wouldn't get cancer because he ate the same diet as people in the 1400s, and they never got cancer. Mom, just because you have checks doesn't mean you still have money. Intense confusion ensues. 2 things directed towards me. 1. I was in high school. A teacher recently found out that I am an identical triplet and that my brothers attend the same school. She was so fascinated with that fact and talked about it for about 15 minutes of the class period. The very last thing she asks made my jaw drop along with the 25 other students in the class. She asked, in all seriousness, "So how does it feel knowing that you have a third of a soul? Are you worried you don't feel like a whole person?" 2. The other incident was not too long ago. I was approached by an older lady at my job. She compliments me with the work I was doing and that she was impressed. Then she asks me about my ethnic background, Asian, but before I could answer, she says, "I bet you're one of them domesticated Asians, aren't you?" I had no idea how to respond to that. I can't stand those feral Asians. Girl in my high school told all of us that squirrels lay eggs because they live in trees. We all just sort of looked at her and had no idea what to say. In high school I worked at an ice cream shop, and the owner of the store was Chinese. One time, we were really rushed, so the owner came out to help us serve the customers. She had a bit of an accent, but I never had any trouble understanding her. Personally, she greets the next person in line, a middle-aged white lady with 2 kids, but the customer cuts her off, saying, "No, I want someone that speaks English." I don't even remember how I responded. I think I just stared dumbly at her. I overheard a man explain to someone else that the reason the French colonized Canada was because the 2 countries were joined together at the last ice age and the French simply walked there. I refuse to believe this. We were watching Saving Private Ryan, high school age. During the opening scene of the invasion of Normandy, a girl complains about how fake this movie is. Myself, who thought the special effects were pretty amazing, asked why she thought that. "Oh, no, the effects are great. It is just insulting to the audience that they expect us to believe that anyone would actually charge a beach like that when there are all those machine guns and tanks and stuff." Cue an hour-long discussion where I realized that she had never heard of World War II, thought the Jews were the ones committing the genocide in the Holocaust, wasn't sure who they were killing, just that they were the bad guys. Washington ended the Civil War and a few other just odd half-remembered facts. I've heard many people make very similar comments about Apollo 13. Mainly that they didn't like the movie because it wasn't believable and could never happen, referring to how the crew got back to Earth safely. I work at a fast food restaurant. I once had a guy come in peed that his fries tasted like potato. I wasn't sure how to respond, and I'm still not sure to this day. Every time I get fries that aren't cooked right, they taste more potato than usual. Maybe that's what he meant. That I was not a real black person because I spoke properly. Little did they know, I was just using that body as a temporary host. A friend, when we were around 16, but people who play in P movies, they are in love, right? Sweet, but ignorant, but sweet. I had a friend in high school who told us she couldn't use the public toilets in the shopping center because otherwise she could get pregnant. She claimed her aunt got pregnant with twins that way. We took her into the nearest bookstore and showed her an educational book about intercourse. Got grounded cause her mom got upset with us, but totally worth it since she now knew enough to not get pregnant from intercourse. Stupid parents. Had a class of South Korean students who were 100% sure that Korea was the only place in the world that has 4 distinct seasons. These were college kids, mind you, majoring in geography. Nationalism is one of the great fountains of ignorance. Canada has 4 seasons also. They're called almost winter, winter, still winter, and road work. From my dad, gravity exists only on Earth. A kid I knew thought that land, like the continents, were just floating on the water. He thought it was possible to swim underneath land masses. To be fair, some people in Congress believe this as well. In 8th grade, a girl in my history class had to have it explained to her that prior to the 1950s the world was not actually black and white. Scientists believe that if you leave a piece of paper alone long enough, it will evolve. In my neighborhood, people really believe that the guy who came from Uganda is a cannibal. He's not. He's just black. Heard one girl say that mental illnesses shouldn't get research funding as it wasn't like they were detrimental to health or anything. That one really took me by surprise. My ex-wife once exclaimed her annoyance that black people came over to USA to mooch off of us, white folk. Ex-wife. I'm a fairly average looking 20-year-old guy from West Virginia. Now I know the stereotypes are pretty bad, but this blew me away. I was on vacation in Florida when a man and I started a conversation about how far we had traveled. When I mentioned WV, he immediately looks to my feet and then stares directly at my teeth for a solid minute before I ask if everything was okay. He then proceeds to ask how I keep such good hygiene with dirt floors and no running water. Needless to say, our conversation didn't last much longer. A girl at my high school thought there were springs in basketballs, which is why they could bounce. American customers at my old work complimenting me on my English skills, but saying that I still need a little practice. I'm Scottish. In all fairness though, they were pretty old and sounded a little rural. My mom does teleconferences with people from both Scotland and Germany and says the Germans are easier to understand because the Scottish accents are so thick. We had a teacher in high school and he was married to another staff member. This teacher has always been a very active LGBTQ ally, but he and his wife are completely heterosexual. A friend of mine thought that they were both gay, so it made sense for them to be together as a gay couple because being a gay man makes him a woman and being a gay woman makes his wife a man. I tried very hard to explain to him how ridiculous he sounded, but he was very sure of himself. My buddy who is currently next to me tried to argue that cheese was not food. He said, cheese is not food because you put it on food, you don't just eat cheese. He still believes this. I'm from WI. You don't need to put cheese on something to eat in. In fact, oftentimes, we put stuff on cheese and eat it. Also, cheese curds. I knew someone who was watching Are You Smarter Than a 5th Grader? Non-Americans, a game show on TV. The question was, is the sun a star? She replied, of course not. Why? Because the sun is round, not star-shaped. Waiting in the airport in Florida to head back home to New Zealand. Got asked if we had electricity, internet, or roads in New Zealand. Then he asked how big the bridge was between us and Australia. At least they knew that it was next to Australia. I'd count that as a win and move on. While living in California, I had a woman originally from New Jersey tell me a story about a Mexican guy. Only in New Jersey we call them Puerto Ricans. That the moon is the closest star to the earth. There was a girl in my high school that believed that Indiana was in Vietnam and that the Vietnam War is still ongoing. Knew a girl who thought dolphins could fly. Her reasoning was that when you look in the ocean, you can't see them. She was 100% serious. You shouldn't read in public. Boys don't like girls who are smarter than them. The Venn diagram of boys who don't like smart girls and boys you don't wanna date is a circle. John Green. A tenant came into the office to fax some welfare papers to the state. Paper had social security numbers on it. She paid the dollar and began to walk out. I was like, hey, want these papers back? And she was like, I just paid you to fax them. I tried to explain to this very confused chick how a fax machine takes a picture, sends the picture, and it prints on the other side's machine. She then asked me, well, what are the telephone wires for, then? It doesn't go through there? How will they get my paper? I need you to fax it. Hum. Met a group of girls who thought Kenya was the capital of Africa. I then had to explain to them the difference between countries and continents. I was in uni at the time and recently found out that these girls are now primary school teachers. I was born in the Netherlands but my parents are Turkish. We are not religious, so I don't wear a headscarf and I eat pork. So, when meeting my friend's parents, they said, so, do you take off your headscarf when you go outside? When I told them I am not religious, they said it wasn't possible because all Turks are Muslim, so I must be one too. I used dollar coins to pay my drink at Starbucks once. The barista told me that I paid only 50 cents. And she looked at the coins closely and she said this is a game money. I thought she was kidding until she called her supervisor. I had the same experience with $2 bills at a grocery store once. She looked at the 2 bills and said 4 and then flicked her little blinking light for the manager. She didn't really want to take them even after approval from the manager. I have a relative who recently went to the zoo with his daughter and was very shocked when he saw a penguin, because until then he thought penguins were mythical creatures, like unicorns and minotaurs. He is 45 yo. That must have been a magical moment for him, though. A girl said this in my math class. I don't want to donate blood because I might need it one day. The substitute gave up that day. You have been visited by the doggo of exquisite pizza taste. Good memes and tasty streets will come to you but only if you comment eat tasty. Papa, if you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check out another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.